All right, thank each other. Let's come back. So if we can have the microphones again, we'll get a little bit of a sampling. So we'd like to tap into some of our collective mindfulness and awareness here. Hear some more of your voices. What are some ways that you can see that you would be able to encourage more peak levels of performance? I mean, you're working in an organization that has this ecosystem where you already have a charter for positivity. That's pretty rare and very cool. If you were to really expand this charter that you have within your ecosystem to encourage the highest levels of performance and for people to be in the zone more often, what are some of the best ideas that you came up with at your tables for how to encourage that on teams or in larger parts of the organization? Just raise your hand if your table had a good idea, and let's just tap into some of our best ideas here. And hopefully we have some microphones. Just wave a hand. Over there, 2 hands over there.
Hi, my question here is, what happens if you, maybe you are not in the zone in this moment, but you need that your team stays there? Maybe you, for some reasons, maybe you are not in your best time here. Yeah. What do you have to do? Because the working is still there.
Yeah. Well, I think, these 4 factors in the middle are really important to pay attention to make sure that people have clear sense of what's expected of them or what the goals are, that they're empowered to make choices and feel supported in that they have some degree of control and choice in how they get the work done. That these factors in the middle, whatever you can do as a leader to help people to have those necessary ingredients to be in the zone is something you can do, even if you're fighting a bout of depression or, it's your unbalanced moment for you and you're not at your best. You can still, help people tap into those resources and encourage them in those kinds of ways. I think that's maybe a simple but important answer, yeah? Okay. Other best strategies or questions? Yeah.
Muchísimas gracias por este... Oh.
Go ahead.
Where you go?
Yeah. Okay, here we go. Okay.
Me voy a permitir, antes de responder la pregunta, decir que anoche bailamos con ellos dos y yo les comentaba a mis compañeros de la mesa de esta mañana que nunca había bailado con 2 personas, con ellos, que pusieran tanta atención en mí al haber bailado. Estaba yo en mindfulness dancing, porque no dejaron de verme todo el tiempo bailaban y me miraban a los ojos y eso fue hermoso. Muchísimas gracias por ese momento y esa experiencia tan bonita anoche. Muchas gracias. Ok, respondiendo a la pregunta de cómo hacer a nuestros equipos más efectivos en cuanto a su trabajo atendiendo esto, nosotros pusimos 8 pasos. Uno es identificar su nivel de fortalezas que tiene. Wow. Y sus compromisos y sus competencias. Entiéndese, competencias como la suma de sus habilidades también. Una vez que identificamos cuáles son estos niveles, el segundo sería identificar los retos que tienen. Y entonces saber que su nivel de reto y su nivel de fortaleza, dónde se encuentran. Ser conscientes nosotros como líderes dónde se encuentran. La tercera es identificar que nosotros como líderes les demos las herramientas para asegurar su éxito. Tercero es cómo nos aseguramos, preguntarnos nosotros cómo nos aseguramos y qué medidas de control nosotros vamos a tener para medirlos a ellos en esa asignación de reto. La sexta es acompañarlos en este proceso, darles un seguimiento una vez que fuimos claros en esta asignación de tareas. La séptima es, Csikszentmihalyi decía que es dar un feed forward inmediato a la tarea o a la actividad para poder asegurarnos que cómo se siente. Y me encantó y lo añadimos, hacerles la pregunta que ustedes nos han hecho sobre qué palabra le pondrías a la descripción o a lo que sentiste al haber experimentado esta tarea, y de esa manera nosotros podemos medir en el termómetro si sienten pánico, si sienten o lo disfrutaron. Y la última es para nosotros los líderes, es asegurarnos que nosotros conozcamos el reto que le estamos dejando o la tarea o en este caso el puesto, ¿no? El puesto, sus manuales, sus indicadores de nuestros seguidores, para que nosotros no ignoremos lo que estamos nosotros como líderes solicitándoles. Eso es lo que pusimos aquí.
Wow.
Very good. Thank you.
That could be a good article for Harvard Business Review. Yeah, or a good YouTube video, in Spanish with English subtitles. Fantastic, and it was a joy to dance with you last night. Muchas gracias. Other strategies from different tables. Hand over here, and over here. Yeah.
Hola a todos, soy Fernanda de Campus Cuernavaca. Yo les decía a mis compañeros que creo que para entrar en la zona siempre es importante comunicar. Mi formación profesional es que soy comunicóloga, entonces pues siempre tomo esa parte de comunicación, pero yo comentaba aquí en la mesa que algo que ha funcionado, y hablo de Campus Cuernavaca, es que la comunicación fluye constantemente. Entonces, cuando tú conoces tu proceso, se lo transmites a la gente que está a tu cargo, a tus homólogos. Yo siempre le pregunto, por ejemplo, a Fer Cancino, ¿cuál es tu proceso para yo poder hacerlo correctamente? Y así no entramos en zona de estrés, porque yo sé cuánto tiempo ella va a tardar en lo que va a pasar y cuánta responsabilidad yo tengo en proporcionar la información correcta. Entonces así la comunicación fluye, trabajamos de manera natural, sin estrés, sin sentirte agotado ni agobiado, porque conoces la información. Gracias.
Wow. And over here. So, yeah.
Bueno. Okay. Hola.
Hola.
I feel and believe it's about habits. De aquí lo voy a tomar en español porque es algo que hago en Campus Chihuahua con el equipo. Yo le digo al equipo, este tema me encanta, la parte del flow, cómo entrar en flow y tener un crecimiento constante. Y para generar balance yo les menciono que hay que entrar en algo que se le podría tal vez definir ahorita que estoy aprendiendo esto de la zona, como la zona del reto o challenge zone. ¿Por qué creo esto? Porque para generar balance hay que tener lo que necesitas aprender y lo que quiero aprender. La mayoría de las personas solamente se van por lo que quiero, no les interesa el necesito. Cuando hay una oportunidad de promoción, de crecimiento personal o profesional, lo levantan la mano, pero no tienen lo que necesitaban. Entonces, con el equipo lo que he tratado de generar, y también primero lo puse en práctica conmigo para ver si funcionaba, funcionó, ya lo hicimos. Pero con el equipo lo que trato de hacer es mencionarles, bueno, ¿qué quieres aprender? O sea, tú dime qué deseas y yo te digo qué necesitas o qué observo que necesites en este momento, y empezamos a generar un balance. Entonces lo único importante es darles acompañamiento, que vayan dándole seguimiento. Tristemente no con todos se generan ese hábito. Yo creo que cuando cumples ese reto, después te sientes inconforme de que no estás haciendo algo nuevo y empiezas a buscar y a buscar y a buscar. Y también es bien importante que no sea como en Año Nuevo, que nos ponemos los 12 deseos y queremos cumplir todos los retos del 1 de enero, ¿no? un reto a la vez, un reto, y lo sumas 2 y luego 3 y te creas ese hábito de estar en esa zona de desempeño óptimo, ¿no?
Wow. Excellent. Thank you.
And can you now see also how the mindfulness can help you, can support getting clear about what is it that I really need and what is it that I really want in my life, and am I on track with that? So you have an additional tool to add to optimizing the likelihood of being in the flow by practicing mindfulness and seeing what's working, what isn't working, what are your mind and body telling you as you're moving in that direction. So thank you.
Wonderful. Anybody else that went over here? Yeah.
Okay, one more.
Okay, so we were talking as a team that it's very important, first of all, that we identify our abilities as what do we have, what can we do as a team, and of our team. And then second of all, we also, as an organization, we know that our workloads are just to the top, right? But even though that we have this huge workloads, there is this conscious among us that we can help each other. And that is very important, the first step, as this is our differentiator as university, that we can help each other, and we know we can go to the next person and we can ask for this help that we need. And that's, I think it's so valuable that we have this in TecMilenio.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So important. Thank you.
We'll talk about Suzanne helping ourselves on that. So as you shared those insights, a story comes to mind of some work we did at a huge insurance company in the States. The woman who was the IT director almost died of really serious cancer. And she managed to get her health back. It was really quite challenging. And she learned these kinds of methods and practices were really important in her healing. When she came back to work, she goes back into the IT department and looks around and goes, oh my God, if we don't change something here, other people are going to get sick and die, and I don't want that to happen on my watch. And so she had this just strong determination to reduce the toxicity in the environment and to build a healthier environment, because she just didn't want anybody to suffer like she had. And she found, I think she'd read a paper that we had done at a conference in Boston at one point, and she contacted us and we started talking, and she said, I want a program called Taking Care of Ourselves, Taking Care of Each Other. I want people to have these kinds of skills. I want us to understand how we can bring these methods into the intensity and complexity of our workplace and learn how to thrive together. And she said, now people hate coming to work on Monday. They just want to stay home. And she said, one of the metrics for me that this program is successful is people can't wait to get back to work on Monday and see their friends and be in an environment that is such a great work environment. Those are a lot of leaders we work with. So we put this program together, it was just wonderful generosity on the part of leadership, intensive training, a lot of follow-up. Whole culture changed, and within probably about 2 or 3 months, people were really sad when Friday came and looking forward to Monday,
You'll see their friends again.
Yeah, and it was just so moving. And not only did they develop this culture within their team, but other people who worked with them were seeing what was going on and kind of saying, what's going on over there? How can we do some of that? And these people were coaching them, and then we started working with other divisions and other departments. At one point, the computer systems went down, and IT was supposed to fix it. And for them, I think it was like $1 million an hour cost if the systems were down. So the stakes were really high. So this woman calls frantically, you've got to get our systems back online, and she's all stressed out. And the person in IT said, come down to my office. Let's talk about this together. So instead of screaming at each other on the phone, woman comes down, sits down, and Beth says, look, this is too important for us to be way up here with our stress. Let's wind it down a little bit together.
Can we breathe together?
Can we breathe together for a few minutes? It's just kind of like, just find our breath, let the stress settle down, clear our minds, open our hearts for a couple minutes. Okay, now that we've de-escalated within ourselves, tell me about the problem. Let's try and figure it out, find the solution. Within an hour, they had the system back up and running. The customer who had come down and breathed with Beth was so impressed and excited about how they found the solution. She called Beth's boss and Beth's boss's boss and Beth's boss's boss's boss and said, this is great. We need to do more of this within our organization. Yeah? So, simple skills, simple strategies, huge effects, great implications for how this works. Consider, working a 14-hour day at 20% efficiency and having 2.8 hours of really productive work time, okay? And consider working in an environment where everybody's stressed out and exhausted and just staying after hours and just working their butts off and not doing great work. And then consider working, let's say, a 10-hour day at 80% efficiency and having 8 hours of really productive, kind of kick-ass, peak performance, in the zone kind of work. So much more productive, less time, hugely greater efficiency. I remember we were invited into the best company in Denmark at one point. It was called Giga. And they made fiber optic couplings for fiber optic cables. And we walked in there. Intel was buying them, and we were helping with the acquisition, which was sort of like being assimilated by the Borg. It was a small organization, 200-300 people, really loved working there. We walked in the first day like, let's go. And they said, no, it's breakfast time. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. They had breakfast together for an hour. All kinds of really gorgeous bread and cheese and very relaxed and kind of tuning, presence and attunement and trust and fun and joy and friendship. And then 9 o'clock came, okay, let's get to work. And kaboom, they did work. Then noon, everything stopped. Everybody goes to the cafeteria. They have lunch together. Have lunch together, an hour-long lunch. 1 o'clock, lunch is over, go back to work. 5 o'clock comes, everybody's out of there.
Even 4:30.
4:30, 5 o'clock. If you were there after 5 o'clock, it's like, what's wrong with you? Can't you get your work done? It's like, have a life, dude. It's like, and this is the best company in Denmark. We started
at lunch they even brought food. People brought food to share from home, like potluck at lunch. They even were feeding each other physically, as well.
So they were working like maybe 7 hours a day at 90% efficiency. Best company in Denmark. We did this meeting with the Intel executives and the owners. 3 days of just trying to figure out what the transition plan was and all that. We started the program, I think there was about 60 people in the room. We started the program saying, okay, let's pause for a moment, like we did yesterday. Pause for a moment and consider how many people will be touched by the decisions that we make in this room in the next 2 days. Like yesterday, we paused and consider how many people might be touched by your quality of presence, by the learnings that you leave this room with. And in this case, we said at the end of reflecting how many people will be impacted by the work we do, one of the engineers raised his hand and he said 2.5 or 3 billion people will be influenced by the work we do in the next couple of days. And then the engineer next to him said, yeah, and I wonder if we're creating the kind of world I want my kids to grow up in. You know, these are just, real life examples of how this plays out in organizations, and hopefully can inspire you to find your version of this at your campus or on your team. So we talked about this model and how we pay attention, we recognize more options, we make wiser decisions, we get better outcomes. Let's look at the whole. This is kind of our ecosystem model here of wisdom at work. The mindfulness piece is down here at the bottom. But at the top, really, because I think it's most important, and this lets us know where to begin, and it also lets us know if we're being effective, as we look at the quality of relationships. Is there trust? Is there openness? Do we share the information rather than withhold it? Do we care about each other? Do we even love each other? Are we friends? The foundation for this work is to build quality relationships. And if quality relationships aren't in place, then how many of you have ever sat down to meditate or do a mindfulness exercise when some relationship in your life was full of tension? And how many of you noticed that when you were trying to quiet your mind and come to a peaceful, shanti kind of place, that there was a lot of turbulence in the mind? Because there's a lot of turbulence in your relationships. You can relate to that? So if you want to have a peaceful mind, if you want to have a stress-free body, the main strategy is make peace in your life, make harmony in your life, in your relationships. It's really hard to kind of be at optimal levels if you're not trusting people or you don't feel safe. So whatever we can do in our organizations to build harmonious relationships so we can have mind-body harmony, that'll give us health and vitality. Okay, does that make sense so far? And once we come to a state of more mind-body harmony, then we can begin to use these mental disciplines to train in developing greater confidence and greater focus, that peace and power that can give us more mindfulness. And as we gain more mindfulness, that will give us greater access to our intuition and our wisdom, and we'll be able to bring a deeper wisdom to our lives and work, which will give us more innovation, more love, more creativity, more compassion, more effectiveness, which will just improve the quality of our relationships. See how that works? And as we do that, then we have all of those positive factors there in the center as well. So let's skip that because that's a little too dense, I think. So here we're balancing and harmonizing the nervous system to reduce stress and come to greater harmony in the body. Here we're getting rid of agitation and confusion in the mind and developing greater peace and power. Here we're really learning how to tap into greater intuition and intuitive intelligence, to see more clearly, to develop greater mindfulness, to see the nature of things. And here we're learning how to bring more wisdom, more compassion, more creativity into our lives and work. It's pretty organic kind of ecosystem. And then if you look at the methods, here we use methods to reduce stress, to balance the energy in the mind and body, relaxation, tai chi, yoga, visualization techniques to reduce stress. Here we learn how to focus and concentrate the mind, and we use methods of concentration. Here we're cultivating mindfulness through various kinds of practice that help us develop stronger quality of presence, able to look more deeply into the nature of things and awaken wisdom. And here there's methods to just harmonize and blend and deal with complexity. Aikido and martial arts on the mat to develop greater compassion. The loving kindness practices of tongue Len meditation, which maybe we'll get to. If not, make a note, read chapter 11 in the balance book, which goes into some of those practices in greater detail. Chapter 11. So this is kind of the ecosystem of this learning and how all of this makes sense to some degree. A couple more things. Okay. Any questions on this? Okay. Yes. Microphone.
What would you recommend in teams like our team or many companies that we have a physical team in our offices, so these kind of practices like having lunch together or all this, or even this kind of meetings helps. But what could you recommend when you work also with a huge team that it's outside and
Extended team, yeah.
yeah.
So
Because
what I'd recommend is whenever possible, like you did here, bring people together so that they can actually have some real face time without a screen in between and build some relationship. And then after people have connected in the three-dimensional, here we are together with our bodies, it's so much easier to do it virtually. So then you can pick it up with Zoom or some other networking software. And in small groups or even large groups, especially, digital platforms where you can cluster in small groups and reflect together, to find ways to just have meaningful dialogue and reflection on the work you're doing, to problem solve together, to build relationship online in those kinds of ways, or to have digital platforms like we use Slack a lot, where people can, interact, share resources, work on projects together that really promote interaction. So I think those are some strategies that come to mind. One other strategy that we found really useful is when you have team meetings. How many of you have team meetings on a regular basis? Okay. So how many of you just never get all the work done that needs to be done in a team meeting? It's just the agenda's always longer than the time you have. How many of you really in those team meetings are very task driven, want to get everything done, get all the information conveyed? How many of you in those team meetings really focus on building relationship? Okay? So here's a formula for you. You can write this down, okay? Let's say if you meet every week, so you have 4 meetings a month, 3 meetings a month, give 80% of your time to dealing with information transfer and dealing with tasks, okay? So 80% of the time in that meeting is about getting the work done and all that. 20% of the time is about building relationship. And part of that could be like, let's take 5 minutes of meditation or mindfulness. Let's maybe go around the table and everybody shares something you're grateful for. Different ways, moments when you were in the zone, just ways to dyads, talking together, small groups.
Or even like we did here in the morning, the check-in, current reality. What's true for you right now? What's going on for you? What are your hopes or intentions for this time? Just to briefly hear everyone's voice and build that attunement, that resonance and empathy.
Good. And then the other meeting, the one meeting out of 4 every month, flip it so that 20% of the time you focus on updates and tasks and getting the work done, and 80% of the time you spend on building relationship, okay? And maybe different people get to facilitate those exercises on the team, for building relationship, and you distribute that. So it's not just the leader who does it, but you give other people the creative opportunity to facilitate something meaningful in the team that'll build more connectivity and more relationship.
Can do the mindful finger exercise.
Yeah. Any other questions or reflections on this model, how this translates for you? Or? Okay. Good. So a few more stories just from organizations we've worked with. Probably one of the first mindful organizations in the world was the largest division of Hewlett-Packard. It was back early 90s, maybe.
Mid-90s.
Yeah, maybe mid to late 90s. The general manager had been recruited by the competition and left HP and went to Compaq. This was the most financially robust organization of all of HP, and the functional managers had never really worked together. It was always the general manager who was making things happen, and he was gone, and they had to run the division together without a general manager. And Michelle had made contact with some people. I think the quality manager made a nice connection at a conference, and they called us and said, "How soon can you be here? We need a miracle."
We need help.
So we flew in, we met with them on a mountaintop for 3 days at a little resort, and they're just sitting there looking at each other going, what are we going to do? And we worked together and came up with some strategies. And at one point we were doing an exercise that we'll do this afternoon with you about clarifying values and what's important, because values help us determine our priorities, making decisions, and that would help them run the division. So at one point the mindfulness card came up, and the manufacturing manager picked up the mindfulness card, looked at it, and says, "Who needs this crap?" Threw it away. I said, "Wait a minute, Chuck."
That's before mindfulness became so popular.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't know anything about mindfulness, and it's like it was meaningless to him. It's like, why bother? I said, "Wait a minute, do you care about efficiency? Do you care about waste? Do you care about optimizing the flow of energy and information resources through your supply chain?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "How can you do that without paying attention? Being really careful with how you use those resources or people." And he went, "Oh, mindfulness, paying it. That's about paying it. Yeah, I'll take that." Yeah. So 2 days later, they come down from the mountain, and the people are gathered going, what's going to happen? Did these guys and gals get it together or not? And the functional managers called them all together in the auditorium and told them the plan, and they had their 5 values for how they were going to manage the organization. And one of the 5 values was mindfulness. And the quality manager and the manufacturing get up and they talk about, look, to manage together, we need to be really clear on our priorities. We need to pay attention to what's important. We need to really listen to each other, because leadership has just been distributed. We are now kind of a teal organization that doesn't know how to do this together, and we need to figure it out, and mindfulness is a key. And they started doing mindfulness from top to bottom. Every meeting, people were showing up, listening deeply. They'd take moments to breathe together. People would, in their one-on-one meetings, and we did skills training, thousands of people across the whole division, facilitating meetings, integrating this work into strategic planning and decision making, and just doing the work of the day. It was all integrated. And I remember one day, we'd go there like for 5 days, for a week. We kind of moved into that town to do the work. And we'd facilitate meetings and things for 4 days a week. And one day a week, we'd just walk around and talk to people and say, how's it going with your blood pressure? Or that conflict you had, or how's your child doing? We just kind of get tuned into people and read the pulse of the organization, and made a lot of friends, And I remember walking around there one day in the cafeteria, walking down the halls, seeing people working together, and I was almost in tears. It was so beautiful. And it's like everywhere I looked during that day, I just kept thinking to myself, there is so much love in this organization. People here really care about each other. People here really care about the quality of their relationships and how they feel walking out of a meeting. They really care about making the best products they can and satisfying their customers at the highest levels. This organization got so much value from this work, they sent us out to work with the superintendents and the principals of all of the schools in that state. They sent us out to work with the medical center and work with the staff there and give them some of the skills and the training that they got. Okay? The people who really go deep in this, and keep in mind, this isn't mindfulness classes in an organization. This is mindfulness integrated. Applied, resilience applied into the work of daily life. It's not a class that you take and you check off and then you go back to being a mindless troublemaker. Okay? This is about integration throughout the whole organization. So that's one example.
Remember the screensavers?
Oh yeah, at one point we walked in, it was in the days when there were like low partitions and big monitors and screensavers, you know. Don't see screensavers very often anymore, but we walked in one day, we'd been gone for a week or two, and we came back, and as far as the eye could see on the screens of the, where people weren't busy working, it said breathe, smile, relax,
Beautiful colors.
So everywhere you looked, division. It's sort of like, this is how we're doing the work together. It's beautiful. Want to talk about here?
One more story? Okay, yeah. One more story.
Well, actually, maybe do an exercise.
Yeah, let's do an exercise.
Okay, so let's do a little bit more mindfulness for a moment, then we'll tell one more story. I'll do one.
Sure. Yeah. This is a good exercise for managing the thoughts, being mindful of all the different thoughts that come across your mental desktop, so to speak. So to do this, again, let's uncross legs, sit up straight, and put one hand on one knee, the other hand on the other knee. And let one hand and one knee, one side, represent the past, thoughts of the past, memories. The other hand, the other knee, planning for the future. The other side is future, fantasies, planning. And just rest with both hands on both knees and just come back to the breath. Just notice, find your breath as it is, just naturally in this present moment. When you're breathing in, you know you're breathing in. Just enjoying your breathing. When you're breathing out, you're aware of the sensations of breathing out. Just being present here and now in this moment with awareness connected to your body. And if a thought arises that's of the past, just gently tap with the hand on that knee that you've designated for past. Just kind of a noting tap with the finger or the hand for the past. Or if there's some thought that has to do with the future, then just tap with the other hand, just to kind of mark it, to recognize it, embody in your body. If the mind is just here and now, just present, open, connected, just to continue to enjoy your breathing with mindful awareness here and now. Thoughts come up, you just note it, you don't get involved, don't push it away, just simply tap. And come back to the breath. If the thought is more of a commentary in the present or some other form of thought other than past or future, you can just tap with both hands simultaneously just to recognize that quality of thought. Just a way of, I see you, noticing recognition. Otherwise, just gently staying here, the breath. Enjoy your breathing.
And appreciate how this quality of mindful, clear presence, that's like the sky-like mind, can recognize like the different kinds of thoughts. Thoughts that we call memories of the past, or planning or anticipating for the future. How this quality of sky-like mindful awareness can distinguish between these different kinds of thoughts, like a weather person can identify different kinds of clouds in the sky. What an amazing gift we've been given. This quality of attention, of wakefulness. Okay. So let this come to conclusion with an ah. Just rest in that open, clear quality of mind, that sky-like mind, just awake, open. The breaths come and go, the thoughts come and go, and you're just resting in clear awareness, open, present. Good. Then let's do a variation on the exercise we just did. So left hand, right hand.
Wait, before we do that.
Yeah.
Before we do that, reflecting on this exercise, the learnings, the fruits, how many of you noticed that you had more thoughts of the past coming up, intruding? Just raise your hand if there were a lot of memories. And for how many of you more thoughts of the future coming up? And how many of you more just really present here and now, pretty balanced? Nice, even distribution.
Did anybody fall asleep? No blame.
Honesty is
okay,
good.
that's
It's
all
about
right.
being truthful.
I mean, that happens sometimes, yeah. You know. It's just, and then we wake up again. You know, we're not going to be mindful all the time. Sometimes we get distracted. Sometimes we fall asleep. But we want to know where home is and keep coming back to
How
that.
quickly do we recover, come back to balance? So variation?
Yeah, variation. One hand for pleasant, one hand for unpleasant. On your knees again, okay. Mindful of your breathing.
So one hand for a pleasant sensation or a thought or an experience that you like, that you're aware of, and the other if it's unpleasant. And in between, just like we did with the memories in the future, just coming back to the breath, resting in the flow of the breath, enjoying that sensation of breathing, knowing that you're breathing in and breathing out. And if you become aware of some experience, perception, thought, emotion that's pleasant, tap with that hand and that knee. And if there's something that you dislike that's unpleasant, that you become aware of, you just note it by tapping the other hand, the other knee. And if you're just in an open, kind of neutral space, then just just remain with the breath, experiencing and enjoying being here and now and open, connected. neither liking nor disliking, neither pleasant nor unpleasant, just here, kind of equanimous, equanimity, even-minded. Just being with the breath, coming and going.